You're on the podcast with
Dino and Ashley. Business
You
edition.
just jumped in like, I know you're very.
I am in my
You're
business
very
jacket
businessy.
today.
I know you.
It's
and
business
Ashley,
on top, shorts in summer, wild child on the bottom.
I had a stringer on, and Ash looks at me and she's like, "Look." And there was a long pause. And I'm like, "Wait.
What are we doing here
What are we
with the
doing
tank
here?
tops?
What's happening? What are you gonna say right now?" And I was politely asked to. And to be fair, I frequently do the same thing. I was asked to switch clothing, but I do the same thing. So I can be like, all right, fine. You want to wear a shirt? I'll wear a
Listen,
t-shirt.
I love the tank tops. I get it. It's literally 100 degrees and it
1 million
feels
degrees.
like a million because of the humidity right now.
Yep.
But I'm wearing a business jacket.
I
You
know.
could wear. He has some good tanks too. Some like nice ones that I love from Buck Mason. They look.
You like the ones with the nips out?
No
What
nip.
are you talking about?
We had a nip slip problem last time and I had to cover your nipples. I was constantly looking at your nipples and everybody else was too.
Look, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Okay, this is what I do. All right.
You're back in the Vince Vaughn.
Hey, look, you watch one Vince Vaughn movie, and all of a sudden, like his
You're
humor
picking
just
up all of his
it
antics.
comes out. You know.
It does.
What's the hot take for the week? What would you say was like
That
the
was
big
a pretty good hot take.
that one?
Don't let your nipples hang out of your man's shirt. A hot take is, it's okay to give each other a little fit check before we leave the door.
All right.
Be like, what's happening here?
I think that this would be very controversial if we talk about in general, like, can a woman correct a man's attire and can a man correct a woman's, or not correct, but like request an adjustment?
I think that if you're in a healthy relationship, why not? It's fun. I love to dress for you, but there are times when you don't like things and I just feel really, really good in it. But you're the one that makes me feel the most good. So if
That's a
I'm
good
going to
way of
wear
answering
something,
that.
I want to wear something that you love.
Yeah,
Because who am I trying to impress here?
I think that's a good aspiration. Be like, and I agree. I mean, I do not want to be growing my facial hair out right now, but you have requested a mustache. It's like,
Well, yes, I was going to say, I didn't say facial hair. I said mustache.
I refuse to grow out just a stash. The intermediate phases of just a mustache
You're like
are not
Gabe,
complimentary.
basically Gabe, our
exactly. I
15-year-old
look like a
son.
12-year-old trying to grow a mustache. It looks not good. All right. You think a nipple's bad? Like, imagine like a 2-millimeter mustache out in public with me. All right.
I don't hate it.
It's so gross. It's so gross. It's not good, especially on me. I did not have, I definitely had estrogen in the water when I was a child or something like that, because I do not grow in a healthy beard.
And you
It's
should,
not
because
good.
he's Italian, French, Lebanese. You got all the backgrounds for a solid beer.
for a
and
hairy man?
You're hairy in other spots. It's
You didn't have to bring that up.
Well, we all know that you shave your chest because it was hairy and we were online at the time, and then all of a sudden it
Not
wasn't.
hairy.
It just doesn't disappear. But it kind of skipped a spot.
This whole podcast is just going to be nonsense. It's just going to be nonsense. You know?
Dino and Ashley ripping into each other.
Yes. Just
so you know, this
joking.
is literally our marriage, like in a nutshell, constantly choking around.
You know, it's funny though. I was talking to somebody a while ago, and they said the way that they can tell that their marriage is in a healthy state is if they can make jokes with their spouse.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
Because if you're joking with your spouse and they're not having it, it's like, ooh, there's some other stuff.
There's some things brewing
There's some
underneath.
stuff going on. Yeah,
Totally.
that's like, you don't have the right at the moment to be joking with me. There's something else.
There's literally nothing Dino could say to me that would offend me.
As long as you're gassed up. I mean, if
exactly.
If
you're like tearing me down, there have been seasons or like a day or two when I have to remind you, I'm like, hey, remember, I'm not just your bro.
Yeah.
You know, like, remember you love me too? And he's like, oh, yeah.
My guy buddies are always reminding me, they're like, you could never be married to anyone but Ash.
Yeah.
Like, you are way too harsh.
I can take the bro stuff as long as you're gassing me up. You're right. Like, as long as I'm like, you're loving me, you're serving me, and, all that stuff, then I can take it.
Yeah. But if I was like being unkind or like making you feel insecure and things like that, then that's not going to fly, obviously. I guess that was a good hot take. We should pivot over to the real topic for the podcast.
I know. But this was so good. I feel like we could do the whole
You want to
podcast
keep going?
on this.
Just do it.
No, let's go.
We wanted to talk about finances. I think that we could talk about aspects of this in a whole bunch of different facets. We could talk about how you and I do it, or like our financial, because I was meeting with a guy on Friday and he was just like, hey, can you please give me a blueprint of how you've done things? And so we could talk about our background and things like that.
Yeah,
I think we've done that, and I think we could do it again. Just talk.
Well, we're good storytellers. That's how we do things. I don't love saying like you should do this, because there isn't just one way to do things. But we know the way that we've done it, and we've also know things that have worked and not worked, and we've made mistakes and had failures. And this goes back to the podcast from 2 times ago when we were saying that your spouse is not your enemy, and that there's going to be things where you make mistakes, and one of you makes a mistake. And supporting one another and finances is usually a big thing that couples fight over or hold resentment or bitterness over, because I told you not to do that. And listen, we've definitely have had things in our marriage. Decisions have been made and they weren't great. It would have been really easy for one of us to put the blame on the other. But
the one of us to put blame.
No, there's been things too that, I've pushed the gas on too, and you followed along, and maybe it hasn't been great.
Yeah.
But,
but you've been
God can
very
do
gracious.
things out of, like, just because we've made a mistake doesn't mean that God can't do something out of those things. And that doesn't mean that we should abandon our partner in those moments, because nobody's perfect. And we are just as easy to fall into something like that. And I don't want you to leave me if I do make a dumb decision. I make dumb decisions all day long.
Yeah, I think that what you're getting at here is like, you never want to hold something over your spouse's head, right? Now, number one, you want to back them up. We're a team. We want to have a team mindset. If I make a call, I would love it if you back me up on it. If you make a call, I want to make sure I'm backing you up at the outset.
And it doesn't mean that what they did is accepted or right. If somebody makes a big mistake, it's a huge cost on your family, a huge toll. It doesn't mean that is right that they did that. But it also doesn't mean that we should be changing our responsibility to love our spouses unconditionally, to treat them how God would want to treat them, to think of us as a whole and as a unit. So, maybe that means counseling. Maybe that means working through that, just not abandoning that person, because no one's perfect and God's grace is so much bigger.
Yeah, so let's give a quick rundown. So when Ash and I met, I was 24, you were 20 when we got married. We started with nothing. Actually, we started with a whole bunch of your debt, which I was very.
But it was I wasn't like shopping. It was just like a car.
Yeah, it was like car.
It was a car
or school or
I don't know.
It
was my Hyundai Santa Fe.
Yep.
It was blue.
Man,
and it was a stick shift.
That was a wonderful car.
That was, man, the control of that stick. I don't think I could do that again. I don't know if I remember. So I had the debt. Dino he was a saver. So he came out of college. He had like $7,000 saved up, exactly the amount that I owed on the car, I think.
I didn't have to buy you a ring and to pay off your car when we got married, basically, out of college. So yeah, I worked my butt off all through college. So I would work all day and then I would do night school for college. That was my college experience. So I slept and worked and schooled.
I remember when we first started dating, it was his apartment. He lived with 4 guys, and that thing was disgusting.
$350 a month. That's what my rent was. That's why I live with 4 dudes in a 2-bedroom apartment.
It was cereal,
disgusting.
pasta.
Oh, so gross.
You just ate like you were you were disciplined then. Very disciplined with your money.
Money, not with anything else.
No, but I mean with you were disciplined with your finances. That's crazy for a young person to be like, I'm not gonna go out and party, and I think the times have changed so much now too, that's what every young person sees. Either they see everyone just like living it up, like live your best life and don't think about tomorrow. Because of social media, they see these younger people who are doing really well financially for themselves, and everybody just wants to be rich right now. Nobody wants to do the work to get there. They just want to be rich right this second, but they don't realize that most people, it actually has taken a lot of sacrifice and decisions and wisdom to get to that point.
Yeah, I think that our culture in general tells young people, hey, at the very least, you have to ensure everyone perceives you as being well off, instead of who cares what other people think? Like handle your finances in a wise way so that, over the course of your life, you can make, sacrifices now so that you can later on, be in a good position kind of thing.
You were living super frugally in your apartment. When we got married, we didn't have any more debt. We moved into my apartment that I had. I mean, I'm just going to kind of skip to we had to go to counseling.
Hold on. I think it's interesting that the first little bit, right out the gate, we did not necessarily agree on financial mechanisms or like structure or disciplines. I had one set of goals that I wanted to push for you and I, and you had a different type of mentality.
Your goal was none and no. Yeah. No fun, no joys, no trips, no going out.
Down payment on a house. I was like, I want the money for the house.
Yeah. You had a one. Cool. And I was on the other side of things. I'm like, but life, and it's...
We're young.
And I was working too. I was a hairstylist at the time, and I made really good money. And so I was like, wait, I don't understand what the problem is here. I'm working hard for the monies.
You were. You were working hard for the money.
Yeah. At that time, I made more than you.
You love to tell this.
Well, I mean, it just
but it's not accurate.
Really...
Okay. All right. 18 years later, and it's still not accurate. Maybe you were making more than me, but I wasn't seeing that you were making more. That money was getting hit off
I did
to
the envelope system. That's my mom raised me that way. But that actually played out well for us in a little bit. So we would, if we wanted to do something, I would do like an extra person's hair, or that's when I started buying, pieces of furniture at garage sales and then redoing them. And I'd put that money away in an envelope, and that would be like date money or trip money or whatever. So it was kind of like free money.
We did not see eye to eye early in our marriage in terms of how we approach things. My goal was, let's get money for the down payment on a house as fast as possible so we can get into the real estate game, get into like fixing and flipping or something along those lines. Your goal was just, you didn't care.
I had no
you
goal.
Didn't care.
I didn't even think about it.
No. You wanted to be able to go on trips and have fun and like do fun things. How would you have told younger initial you and me, early married, the best way to structure your marriage in terms of your finances? Now, this isn't going to be for everybody. This is just what I would say, early you and me.
I actually think what we did was the smartest thing for us. We ended up going to counseling because we could not get on the same page. Dino wanted me to be on an allowance. Those were his words.
Oh my goodness. No.
I didn't love that.
I did not say allowance. I said we need a household budget.
No.
And all you heard was I get an allowance. That's what you heard.
I was like, ooh, yeah, I'm not your child, so I don't.
I was like, hey, we're over budget. You can't spend $900 on eating out or whatever it was,
What? Where was I going for $900?
Bagels and like every day next door to that hair salon, you were smashing food. We know that's what you spent that money on. All right?
The baby needed it. Jeez. Oh my gosh. I'm still talking in Vegas. You've skipped ahead to...
we're all over the place. Yeah. Those early years, all of the first 5 years, they're just all together.
Either way, we went to counseling because I didn't like the verbiage that was used. Budget, allowance, whatever it was. And then the counselor, it was a Christian counselor, he was like, well, this is not your child. You can't talk to her like that. I did love that.
This is how you remember this conversation. I did not that conversation that way at all. But by all means, continue. This is delightful. Please keep going.
I don't know what he said about me. I feel like he didn't say.
Have you heard the term revisionist history? Have you heard this terminology before?
I feel like it's me right now. No. But whatever, it was good for us. It was good for us. We needed to go to counseling. We needed like a mediator to tell us that we were both wrong. Whatever I was doing wrong. No, I was definitely wrong too. Because I mentioned this before, I found my identity in the things, and I wasn't spending like a lot of money. I wasn't like designer person, it was just like little bits here and there. But it would make me feel good. Like, I need a new pillow for that because
you were always saving us money, and I'm doing finger quotes right now if you're just listening, by getting like good
when you
deals.
Say saving us money, people know you're finger quoting.
Yeah, I'll do that tone just for the people that are not watching. This is my finger quote tone, right? Saving us money. You were saving us money by going to Ross. You would come home and be like, look how much money I just saved us.
These are normally $100 and they were $9.99.
But we don't need those things. No. The penny matters.
It does.
But we don't need those things, but it didn't matter. All right, but back to the point. What would you have recommended early marriage us, would you have said, hey, you should get on some sort of financial
Absolutely.
budgeted structure?
For sure.
Okay.
Because, I mean, we do that now, in a sense.
Ish.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, let's say what flipped for us.
yeah. Okay, so the big turning point, actually, I don't remember it being that counseling session. I remember it being...
No, I remember that counseling session, but I know what it was.
I did a little sneaky tactic.
Yeah. I don't know if this would work for everybody, though.
No, this might actually be catastrophe for other people. So we are not giving advice here necessarily how to handle this. We're just giving our 2 cents on how we rolled. Ash came home one day. I was really irritated with some expenditure. I have no idea what it was. It doesn't matter. But I was like, I'm all done. I'm going to just work my butt off, and I'm going to have you pay all the bills from now on. When they come in, I want you to make sure that we have enough money in our bank account to be able to cover all of our stuff. And then if you can decide how much you want to push forward into the next month in savings and what we're going to do with that savings, for right now, the only thing that I care about is our macro big level finances. I just want this specific thing covered over here, and I want enough money in this little area over here to be covered. Everything else it's yours to manage. And it put like all this responsibility on you.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I definitely felt like, okay, now I can see everything and what's coming in and out. And I think the reality of it, like the realness of the numbers and seeing things going down, it was like, oh, I don't like that at all. So it did. For me, I needed to see it so that I could know exactly what was happening. Then the tables turned and I'd be watching everything, and I'm making my tuna fish salad sandwich for my work day doing hair, and I see that Dino goes to Umami Burger and spends $20 on a burger.
It was 2:00. It was like 2 hours after I made the expenditure, and I get a phone call or a text message like, what are you doing at Umami Burger for $12 burger? I'm like, what is happening? Who is this person right now that I'm married to now all of a sudden? Yeah. Oh man, those are good times.
I know. That was fun. Okay, so
all right, so yeah, that was early phase. Early phase for us was, hey, we did, and this will be fun. We'll do some of the phases and what we would tell our previous selves. This is what you should generally do.
I mean, also, like, just so you are aware, this is us too. We only dated for 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then we were engaged for 4 months. So this is us getting to know each other within marriage and like working together and sacrificing like the things that we knew, what our parents taught us, how we were raised, and then dying to those things and becoming one.
Yeah.
So it was actually really cool.
It was.
Like this is what I'm saying, like when we were talking about going through trials together, this is what makes it so cool in marriage. Those things aren't fun. Like, I don't want to go through those things. But when you look back, I loved those things because that's what made us one.
Absolutely.
That's what made you and I, and not your family's history and my family's history.
Yeah, exactly. And me in our marriage and you in our marriage.
Yes.
We don't do things that way.
Yeah.
Like, you and I had the mentality very early on, there is no quit. There is no out ever. We don't talk about it. We don't think about it. We're in this forever. Therefore, we got to figure out what we're doing. We got to figure out what's going on with our finances. We got to figure out what's going on with my free time gaming or whatever it was. As we've gone through marriage, all the different aspects, all the different facets have been areas that you and I have decided, hey, I have to make a sacrifice, or you have to make a sacrifice, or we're going to butt heads on this and there's going to be friction until we figure out some way to find the two shall become one kind of thing.
Yeah.
Early age, I would recommend, from my side, you can say your side, I would recommend trying to create a common vision with your spouse on what it is that your financial goals are, and then agree to the level of sacrifice that you're willing to make. I personally tell all young people that I talk to, early years, you have very little resources and unlimited resourcefulness. You have no kids that are up, most of the time, you have no kids that are up in your business. You have no other responsibilities. You have unlimited capability to work
You're
your
young,
butt off.
you have energy.
Work. Go. I was working 60, 70 hours a week on the regular. I'd work a full-time job, but that was like 50 plus hours. And then I'd go home and do freelance for another 20 plus hours every single week on the regular. And the goal for us was get enough money so you can utilize that cash to start making money with the money.
Absolutely.
Right? So,
I mean, I would say the same exact thing. That's exactly what we say to younger couples now, and looking back and to see where we're at now. I'm so thankful that we did stuff like that and that we were disciplined and that you showed me that, because what a waste of time.
Yeah.
And we would have just wasted out on so many opportunities. Now, I would also say, because of my, enthusiasm for life and doing things, and that, kind of brought you over because you were a naysayer on that, and then I brought you over a little bit. I think that there is allowance for, we're going to set this up in this structure. We're going to put this much money towards, our house fund and make sure all of our bills are paid and saving, and we're working hard and we're disciplined. But at the same time, we're young. Let's enjoy our life. Let's, whatever it is, depending on, your family and how much you make and all that stuff. But let's do, a trip a year or whatever.
Yeah.
And we'll allocate a certain amount of funds for a date night a week or a month or whatever, and at $100 budget or whatever it is that works for your family. But to not just work and not enjoy your life either. There is a balance there that you can have. But I just feel like most people now, it's 99% play, fun. I just want to think about right now and how good it makes me feel right now instead of thinking about your tomorrow self.
Yep. You were a very good balance for me. I would probably never have gotten out of that rut of save and grow as much of a financial ball as possible. I can get overly into the process and forget the bigger picture. You help me balance out and say, hey, let's work really hard, but then let's just save a little bit of money over here and we'll go on a fun trip for this little thing. And we'll do it in a frugal way. We'll find ways of finding good deals. I remember you would do, I don't remember those.
It was like Groupon, Travel, any of those things. Yeah. I'd find something on there or
crazy deal where it was like, oh man, for a few $100s or whatever it was, we could go away and do something.
I'd buy the things on Craigslist and then refinish them. And then I'd save envelope money. And that would be all of our spending money that we could use. I remember I went to New York on a trip with my mom and I brought $400 cash with me. And that was all money that I had saved from like having a garage sale, buying things and reselling them. And then I lost that money in a taxi when I got there.
And I forget, did someone tell you not to use cash?
But then I did find the money, so it was okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay, moving on. We're going to need to do 2 parts to finances.
Are we?
I think so.
Okay. All right. That was early phase. I very much would recommend from my side, work as hard as you can and find a good balance that ensures that the priority of your marriage isn't lost in the priority of working as hard as you can for finances. I am a series of me's or us's over time. And I'm going to sacrifice the right now version of me for the future version of me, right? I mean, even Jordan Peterson, that's a total Jordan Peterson thing that I'm stealing. But the idea there is that you have to take a beat and ensure that you're thinking about yourself as a series of yous over time. And discipline, even financial discipline, is a matter of saying, I know what I want most. And what I want most is for me to be in a good financial position when I'm older or at this age, and I don't want to be like a financial burden on our kids when I'm old and need health issues. Therefore, I'm going to make certain sacrifices now to ensure that later version of me is in a good position, right?
Don't waste that time.
You and I then eventually did get enough kind of saved up, got a house. So let's talk about from the years of that first house until we sold the San Jose house. I think that was the next, we were on a grind there in the financial years before things kind of shifted.
Yeah. So when we first bought our house, that was a big stretch for us because this was a lot of money. I mean, this was in 2008 and we had done a pretty good job of saving some money, but it also was the time that the crash happened, that big crash, housing crash. So for us as a first-time home buyer, it actually was super beneficial for us. We were able to buy a house that we normally probably wouldn't have been able to buy. It was a 5-bedroom, 200 square feet something house, older. It was built in the 80s, trashed, but we were able to scrounge around for the down payment, and then we renovated, I'm finger quoting, because it was a family, friends. I think we allowed ourselves, was it $50,000 or not even that one.
No.
15?
Yeah.
Like 15,000.
And I think you spent 9 of that on carpet. You carpeted the whole house because the whole place had dogs that were in there and peed on everything.
Why did I carpet it? So gross.
Because it was like
It was a lot of carpet.
the cheapest possible
It was
thing
the cheapest
we could
thing.
do.
Yeah.
Wood
And we
floors
just
are-
go to Home Depot, get the cheapest tile. I remember for our entryway, it was like big 30 cents a tile, but it was fresh and we painted it all ourselves. We painted the cabinet faces all ourselves, did all the yard work ourselves, and we made it happen. So we made a push there.
It allowed us to get our foot in the door. It was a big stretch. And I remember debating in those early years because it was like, okay, the bank told me I can get this much and the house is this much. I was like, okay, we really want to redline this all the way to maximum. So you're pregnant. So that means that you're going to not be able to be working anymore. So now I really have all of this extra burden on my shoulders. So I remember being like, hey, love, we're not going to pay for TV. We'll have internet only. I put us to the point where it was like every single month it was redlined. And I was just praying that I was going to get a raise so that we could have a little bit of extra money to maybe go out to eat every once in a while kind of thing.
And then I started doing hair on the sides and then like buying and selling again. And then
more freelance.
Yeah. Then we needed a new car for you, and Dino would do freelance because he was coding. So he would do freelance stuff. And it was like, okay, if I do this job, it'll be every day for the next 2 months and I'll make another extra $3,000. But this could pay off $3,000 of our car. I'll be like, all right, I'm here. I'll support you. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And we would do that.
Through all this, the common thread is get on the same page with your spouse. That's my big recommendation with all of these phases that Ash and I went through. We struggled and weren't on the same page. I would highly recommend ensuring that you have a common vision so that when you're going through things, you can both point back to, hey, this is the thing that we agreed that we wanted to be going after. So let's look at the decisions we're making right now through the lens of what it is that we want to be getting after most.
Yeah, and pray together over this because everyone's end goal is going to be different. It's going to change over the years probably. And it's just so important to be aligned with not only what you want together, but that God aligns you both together and what He wants for you and for you as a married couple going forward. So we put a lot of, time and energy. We worked hard when we were in that house. We lived there for 8 years. And that was like, I call that year just the blur. I had 3 kids at that point in that house. They were all very close in age. We had a miscarriage during that time as well. You probably changed jobs twice during the 8 years.
Yeah. 2 other times. Yes.
And this was still the time too when I am still finding my identity in the things of this world and in change and newness. And, our house isn't quite as great as everybody else's. Like, could we do something else? And Dino's on a path of, no, we are going to die in this house. We got this house for a great deal during a great buying time. We're going to stay here forever and just ride it out.
So, speaking to that, my initial philosophy was I wanted to be debt free. That was my goal. It was very Dave Ramsey-ish. That was my mentality. I've since shifted my mentality and I'm more into maximizing and utilizing debt structure. So what that basically means is we leverage the equity we have in our properties to be able to use that cash to be able to put into other investments that can make us more cash on that on that.
We can get more into that on the next podcast because that's really in depth and that's not going to be for everybody. Most people will not be able to go down that path because it takes a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
And just to have the whereabouts to know the financial pathway. That's just really intricate. But we'll go into that because I think it's interesting for people to know. But
I think it takes a certain type of person. Some people have a desire to get into it and they want to understand how to potentially maximize their debt structure and maximize the cash they have to make it so that they can be using that to help themselves grow. And some people and I would say most, they just want to be able to have a simple type of life where their house is paid for and they're in a good financial position. And that's fantastic. One of my best friends is exactly doing that. every single month he's kind of over pushing down his mortgage payment. He lives well below his means for a very long duration to make it so that by the time, I think he got a 15-year mortgage and he's projected to have it paid off in like 2 more years or 3 more
Amazing.
years. Something. That's crazy.
Yeah.
At
That's
40 something
so
years
great.
old, he's pushing to have his mortgage all the way paid off. That's insane. I am not in that position, but that's because you and I have decided to do things in just a different
But
strategy.
neither are wrong.
No.
But they could be wrong for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that if you're not being obedient to the gifts you have and you're also not being disciplined in one of those strategies, you can get into a lot of trouble on either one of them. There's minds all over the place. Some of the minds that we've even been talking about is that you have an overemphasis on saving without having any priority in your marriage and having, enjoying your time together. There's equivalently issues where people want to be overly risky, where they're taking their finances and not being wise. They're being foolish and over-investing into things that have high risk associated with them. Which I've also done. I've put
consequences.
Yeah, I've put money into things that are just very high risk, and it fell out. It didn't work out, and I felt really bad and shameful on that. And that's mine. I own that, and I've had to come to you and apologize for, hey, this was risky. I shouldn't have done it. But at the same time, you were amazing when we initially went into it. I said, hey, this is what I want to go do. You were like, I'm not sure we should go do that, but I'll support you. It didn't work out. You didn't hold it over my head. It's forget it. We'll move on. No big deal kind of thing.
Yeah.
We'll make another decision. We'll use this information and the learnings from this on the future decisions we're doing.
Yeah. You already felt bad enough. And again, that's not my job to condemn you for your wrongdoings, because I really hope you don't ever do that to me,
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's between you and the Lord. And again, God was able to use that opportunity to grow you and I closer together, and for you to gain wisdom and knowledge to go forward in the next thing that we did.
Actually, this is a good segue. We sold our house and then bought land.
Yes.
How was that financial decision?
Well, you could look at that a few different ways. So that's what I was leading up to. So I was, always looking in the background for, maybe we could move and maybe make a change. And Dino wasn't feeling any of it. I would go look at houses. I remember that one house that I really wanted. I'm so glad we didn't get that. Oh my gosh. So then when you look back at things and when you think, this is why you don't lean on your own understanding. This is why you seek after the Lord. And at that time, I was leaning on my own understanding. I just saw a shiny, done house that was newer than ours in a cuter neighborhood. That's all I saw. And looking back now, what a terrible decision that would have been. And I'm so thankful that the Lord protected us from that.
Yeah.
And from myself. And you were very wise during that time. But I did find a piece of land, and so I kind of tricked you slightly.
Oh no, you tricked me. You full on did.
I was like, we're going to our friend's house for dinner, and the land was on the way there, and I was like, whoop, let me drive. Let me just look at this land here. This is for sale.
Whoa, what? We're supposed to go that way. Yeah. What are you turning for?
Let's just get out and look at it. Let's just go see what it is and just check it out. Look at this land. This is so cool. We could build a house up here, like a dream house. And it's only this much money, we could totally do this.
You got me good.
I did. I got him real good. So that was the beginning of us selling our house and buying the land and moving into the trailer. And that all really went about because you felt like it was going to be you wanted to go on an adventure.
Yeah.
This was the first thing in our marriage. So it was basically up in 8 years. This was the first thing that Dino took a big risk on, something that was way out of his comfort zone and very adventurous, very weird. No one was doing this back then. It wasn't a thing to live in a trailer. Well, our initial goal wasn't to live in the trailer. It was to get the land. That was just a risky thing. But in order for us to do that, we had to sell our house. So we sold our house, made a $200,000-ish profit on it.
Yeah.
We were able to buy the land. The land, we thought, man, what could we do while we're living or why we're going to build this house? And everything was so expensive in the area we were living in. To rent an apartment was more than we were paying on our mortgage, because when we, got our house initially, it was at such a time that our mortgage was so small that rent for a 1-bedroom apartment was more than what our mortgage was. And we were like, we can't, like, that's crazy. We can't do that.
We had a house we bought during the crash with a 1.99% interest rate. I refied that thing so rock bottom. It still hurts my soul knowing that was the interest rate that was viable.
But that's what made it so hard to want to pay money for something in the meantime. So then somebody I was following online had mentioned, or was following me, had said, and I just started my Instagram at this time, like 6 months it was going. And she was like, you should do a tiny house. And so we started looking at tiny houses and putting a tiny house on the land. But those were like 70 grand, or you could get them for like 20, but then you'd have to fix them up.
Whatever dollars we were putting into our living situation at the moment is dollars we're taking away from our home that we wanted to build.
Yeah. So then we thought, what if we did a trailer or an RV? And we started looking them at used car lots. We stumbled upon the Cougar Keystone.
It was the second thing we looked at.
The second thing we looked at. We were so dumb and naive. We had no idea, really. We were just young and just like, let's just go for it. But I love that we did that, because I think if we would have put too much thought into it, it would have also backfired. But because it wasn't a thing, and because it was just like this newness,
Why did we pick that one though?
Because it had 3 bunk beds, that
was the only criteria, huh?
Yeah, it had 3 bunk beds, and we had 3 kids. And we're like, this was made for us.
What?
We had never been in a trailer before.
A trailer with 3 triple bunk? This is it. It's a sign.
So we bought that for $8,000, put $3,000 into it, fixed it up ourselves over the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
And then we lived in that thing for the next 17 months. And then that begins a whole other journey of all the things, and shifting our mind with how we lived, with our finances, the way that I saw things, the way that we spent our time, experiences over things. Just so much came from that, which I feel like we should go into on the next podcast, because it's just starts like the next chapter of our lives.
Yeah. We have briefly we've done a full podcast on the importance of adventuring with your wife or your spouse, doing crazy things, doing hard things together. This was the starting of all of that type of living with you and I, because I was very much not that way. I had no desire to do adventure. I had every desire to be very structured and have everything dialed. And especially I wanted to be in a very, very good financial position. I think a good chunk of that, just kind of getting into a little bit of my history, comes from my childhood. I watched my family scenario be financially very up and then very down, and it just freaked me out. Especially, I left home when I was 17, and I had no desire to be in that financial scenario anymore. I didn't want to have financial uncertainty. I really didn't want that for my kids. I wanted my family very stable financially.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it came from...
Of course it did, yeah.
And you brought balance. And then there's balance plus you can live in an extreme way, like living in a trailer, and save a bunch of money and get crazy and do fun things.
Yeah.
And that kind of, once I realized that, it blew my mind.
Yeah. So I think like wrapping up this whole season of life that we were in, and the goal of this podcast about finances is that the goal is to try to get on the same page with your spouse, however you can, to be supportive to one another with the finances, to support each other through the decisions, to get on the same page on what your goal is.
Yeah.
To just have a clear path forward. And you're not always going to agree. Like, we do sometimes argue about money still.
Yeah.
Not really. Yeah. I mean, but like in different ways.
It's interesting. We recently had a conversation back and forth, you and I, and it was really just around expectations. Sometimes I have to go to you and be like, hey, this is your expectation on this specific thing needs to be adjusted based on these other variables.
But my point is that nothing is perfect, and it takes work, but it's important to do the work. So if you need to go to counseling for that, or just to create that time where you can be alone and you guys can talk about those things so you can get on the same page and it doesn't happen overnight. This is us over 10 years or 8 years figuring out how to get aligned with our finances and what kind of life we want to live together and how we want to spend our hard-earned money, how we want to save it, how we want to give it, and figuring out what that means for our family. So
number one, yes, absolutely get on the same page with your spouse. Don't shirk away from the harder conversations. Desire peace with your spouse. But you and I have also had phases, at least on my side, where I was in the mentality of, I don't want to have this conversation. I don't want to have a financial conversation because I don't want to have the fight. And I highly recommend not doing any of the avoidance type thing.
Yeah.
Have the fight if it needs to, but don't fight it out with the intent of trying to get your way. Just have the harder conversations with the intent of getting into alignment with your spouse.
The goal is to become one, the one organism.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, well, we're going to hit it hard then, because the next part to this is pretty exciting.
Yeah? We're going to leave on a cliffhanger?
I know, this is exciting.
Oh my goodness. All right. So we've told the story up until when we're in the trailer. We'll do a part 2 on this on the next one, and we'll talk about
part 2 finances coming next week.
We'll talk about a little bit of a shift. So
have a good week.
Bye.